Good afternoon.
Hi.
We're here today for mediation. And before we get started, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items, if that's okay with everyone.
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Christopher Mediator. I am the mediator in today's mediation. Feel free to use my first name when being addressed. I'm okay with that. This is a voluntary process, so I want to make it as casual as possible. Now, before I move forward, could you all introduce yourselves and the party you represent, if you are representing a party in this matter? Starting with whoever would like to go first.
I'm Jack. I'm represent the city in this matter.
Yeah, I'm Tonya. I'm the museum director.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, I'm going to be taking notes throughout this process. Is that okay with everyone? It doesn't mean I'm not listening. It just means I really need to gather all the information so that I can kind of just analyze it as everyone's kind of discussing. Is that okay?
Sure.
That's fine.
Okay. So essentially, I want to let you know a little bit more about me. I'm a court-appointed mediator. I was assigned by the court to essentially be a third-party neutral to this process. What that basically means, and I've been doing mediation for about 10 years now, so basically what a mediator does, if you're not aware, what a mediator does is, I'm here to be a neutral party in a dispute. I hear everyone's views on how they feel, and just kind of help to facilitate the conversation, to get the conversation moving. But at the end of the day, it's really up to the parties to make movements. I'm here to listen to every side possible and just kind of see where everyone's at, get a pulse of that, and just help you facilitate, movement throughout the process. I have no relationship with any of the parties. I don't know anyone personally from the parties. And one of the important things about mediation is the ability to remain impartial. And I feel like that is one of my strengths in doing mediation. So that's my role, a third-party neutral. I will be impartial. I will hear everyone's point of views. And this is your process. That's another thing I kind of want to explain. This is the most talking I'm going to do, but throughout the afternoon, I'm going to hear from you both. So I just want you to know that's not going to be me yapping all day about anything. That's the good news. Okay, but so essentially, the process of mediation, has anyone here been a part of mediation before?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, the process of mediation is essentially, like I kind of just vaguely went over, I'm a third-party neutral. I'm going to hear everyone's side of the situation, and I'm going to facilitate and hopefully just hear ideas and concepts. And mediation is a unique way for parties with disputes to kind of come to an agreement before it heads down to other avenues, which is court, which is perfectly fine if you want to go down that route. But this is the process before court to see if we can come to some sort of agreement. This involves you all. I'm just here as a neutral. So essentially how it works is the party who brings the motion in court will go first, but it's really up to you all who wants to go first. I will hear from every side their point of view, and then we can just start the conversation going. And there's something I want to bring up. It's called a caucus. Essentially, we'll all be in the same room unless we form a caucus. A caucus is a fancy word for I would meet with the parties individually and just kind of, have a discussion. And I will provide both sides equal time and opportunity to meet. And there's two ways we can caucus. The first is if any of you request it, if any of you just want to have a discussion, I'm here and we talk one-on-one, then I bring in the other party. While I'm talking with one party, the other party's outside thinking of ideas to come to a solution, and vice versa. So that's one of the ways. Another way, and this is going to be totally up to you all, is if I feel maybe we come to a point in this process where you all are not making progress that you would like to see yourselves, so I may call a caucus with your approval and blessing to kind of get to the root of the situation and help facilitate movement. As I said, my job is essentially to help you get the ball rolling, so to speak, if that makes sense. So that's what a caucus is. Now, the next piece is kind of a wide range of topics, but I'm gonna narrow it down really shortly, because I feel like, it can get convoluted, but it's also important, and I'm gonna explain the important parts of the next process, and that's confidentiality of the mediation. First of all, before I keep going, is there anyone in the room you'd like to bring in to be part of this process before I talk about confidentiality?
No.
Okay, so it's just you both?
Yeah.
Okay, so essentially, confidentiality of mediation is a person, myself included, you all, cannot be called to testify in court as to any communications or documents relating to the mediation. Now, I myself, as a mediator, do have certain protections in confidentiality that I may not discuss, but that's not important. What is important is your confidentiality. If you feel you want to waive that and you come to an agreement together to say whatever we talk about, we can talk about in the future in court, that's completely up to you. But essentially, on its face, you have protections to not be called to testify in court as to any communication or documents related to this mediation. And if you both come to that agreement, that is completely in your liberty to do so, and that's really up to you all. And that's kind of your piece on confidentiality, but there are some exceptions to this rule, and I want you to be aware of the exceptions. The first exception to the rule is anything that documents or communications that constitutes a crime. Essentially, if any crime is committed, then that's one of the exceptions to where you would have to be called in court to testify, or you may be called in court to testify. And the second exception is, it sounds very technical, and I'll try to break it down, gives rise to the disqualification proceeding. So essentially what that means is a conflict of interest between yourself, maybe if you have an attorney, and is anyone here an attorney?
Yes.
Okay, so a conflict of interest. Say there's a conflict of interest between your client and you both. That could be an exception where you might have to go testify. So it's like, so that's what the give rise to disqualification proceedings rule covers. Now, the final exception is, going on that note, constitutes a professional misconduct. So while the second rule or exception went to essentially information that may be a conflict of interest, if there's blatant misconduct on myself and you both, that constitutes professional misconduct, we may be required to testify on things that have been discussed here or documentation. So that was a lot of information, kind of long-winded, I apologize, but you have to cover these bases. And before we get started, I'm gonna give you both a agreement to mediate document that you may have to sign, you can sign on behalf of your clients, saying that you do agree to mediate today in good faith and just in general. Before I do that, do you have any questions for me?
No.
No.
No questions? Okay. And that goes throughout the whole mediation. If you at any time have any questions, just stop. This is your process. I adapt to you both's personality, both of your personality, and this is the agreement to mediate. So I'm gonna write, or you see this huge letterhead that was printed. If you can just sign right there that you agree to mediate, and we can get this process started. Awesome. Thank you both so much for that. Now, before we get started, I do want to mention once again, I'll be taking notes. It's no application on my listening to you. I've done this for 10 years, so I have kind of a slightly good grasp on it, I would say. And if at any time anyone needs to use the bathroom, take a break, get a cup of coffee, a pop, whatever, just let me know. This is your process, and I promise I will stop rambling as of right now. So, now, how did you both want to proceed? Usually the party who brings the motion goes first. So with that being said, I will leave it up to you all on who wants to tell me what brought them here to mediation today.
You brought this,
Yes,
right?
yes. So I can go first.
Okay.
So what happened is that I'm the museum director of a museum in this town, and we have a portrait that's hanging in the museum. And the mayor saw it, and afterwards he called and asked me to take it down. But I did not agree that it should be taken down. So he then removed the funding that the museum has, which led to my employees not being paid because the museum are really dependent on this funding from the mayor. So I filed writ of mandamus and an injunction so that I can try and force the mayor to restore the funding, but this was not approved. So I have appealed it, but we decided to try mediation first to see if we can solve it.
Okay, well, Tanya, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, just so I'm clear, before we get your perspective on this, you are the museum director of this city. There was a portrait in the museum,
Yes.
and the mayor did not like that particular portrait and request you take it down. And you didn't agree with that?
Yes.
And the mayor then removed the funding based on you both not agreeing with that situation, and that led to employees of the museum not being paid. And then you filed a writ with an injunction to restore funding, was initially denied, but you have appealed it, and we are here today.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, Jack, our first name's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Jack, what brings you here today?
Well, I'm the attorney for the city, so I have to handle this suit. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to start by saying it's not just the mayor who's upset about it, it's basically everyone in the city. We've received so many phone calls, so many letters from everyone, from religious leaders to Native Americans, to police officers, to just people who don't like the picture. It's upset nearly everyone in the town. So we can't be supporting this museum while they have that picture up, and we told them that. And we don't want to pull funding, but if it's causing so much problems in the town, we can't keep supporting that. So we have to figure out something today that we could do where we could just have them stop posting the picture.
Okay, so Jack, just so I'm clear on what you've shared with us in the room, you are in fact the city attorney for this city, and it is your view and position that the painting that Tanya referred to has upset a large group of people within this city. You receive phone calls, letters from all types of ethnic groups, and everyone is not a fan of this particular painting. And you informed the museum of the situation. Am I correct in all that?
We informed them that we couldn't support it, and we pulled the funding as a result, yeah.
Okay. Now, before we move on, just for clarity purposes, would anyone, and it's up to you both, would like to share? Well, actually, let's get both of you involved in this. That's probably the better route. Tanya, can you tell me, in your view, what exactly this painting is? Because I'm trying to get a picture of it in my mind, and then Jack will hear from you on your perception of what the painting represents, just so we get a picture of what everyone's kind of thinking. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, it's a picture of a Native American man that is murdering a white police officer, and there's an image of Jesus standing beside them applauding. So I understand that it can cause reactions, but also the picture has been really popular, and we've gotten a lot of people coming from afar just to go and see it. So it has brought in a lot of positive things for the museum.
Okay. And And aside from the, and this is just a quick follow, aside from the popularity of it amongst people that come to see it, is there any particular reason the museum is adamant on having this picture up?
We have an agreement with the artist, that it would hang for 3 more weeks, and then it's gonna go to a different museum, because I think it's a tour.
Okay. Now, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, Jack, from your perspective, what is this painting?
It's, I don't know, it's an image that's offending a lot of people, and it's great that it's helping the museum, but it's not helping the rest of the people in town. And we're afraid that if we try to litigate this on appeal, we're gonna have to get opinions from everyone out throughout the town, so we have people who advocate the free speech painting, and people who are offended by it. Two different groups of people who are very opposed to each other, it's gonna tear the town apart, and so we can't be supporting this painting in any way.
Okay. Now, I opened this up to both parties. Have there been any preliminary discussions regarding this situation, or can you, either of you, or both of you, whoever wants to go first, explain the communication that's gone on prior to, litigation and mediation, just so I get a clearer picture on where the parties have talked to each other?
Well, we did have that initial decision by the judge, right, and
Yes.
it ruled in the city's favor, and so they're appealing that one. I think that's the only communication.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So, was there any, so it's to my understanding, the only communication, and correct me if I'm wrong, was a disagreement, then a judge ruled for the city, and now there's an appeal pending?
Right.
Yeah.
So there were no discussions before, like, with the displeasure of the painting and the back and
But
forth?
then the mayor called
Okay,
and told us that he wanted us to take the picture down.
okay, and,
That's where he said that he would remove the funding
okay,
and take it down.
okay. Now, so now that I got the communication clear, I actually do wanna just make sure I clear that up. There was a dispute about a painting. The mayor then called the museum and said, we want this painting down. And then the museum refused. And then the litigation followed, to which the city was awarded, a city won in that sense. And now you've appealed that ruling. Is that where we're at?
I believe so.
Okay, so after all this, after the ruling by the court and the appeal filed, were there any communications between the parties?
No.
So, essentially, what I kind of want,
Well, we did agree to try mediation for that.
Well, yeah.
that's a very big step, and I wanna thank y'all for being here today. Mediation is a big step, and just having both parties at the table, that's not something to take for granted, so thank you both for coming today, once again. So, I guess my next question would be, how, and this goes out to both of you, and whoever wants to go first can decide, how would this situation be resolved? Like, what's a good resolving situation for this whole thing? Does anyone, you wanna go first, Tanya? Like, what would you both like to see, essentially, is my question from this conflict?
I want of course, the city to keep funding the museum, because we've had to shut down because of this. So my employees, they haven't been paid since this happened, and they have been taken out on a forced vacation. And it's not fair that this is gonna go or affect the employees that just work at the museum. That really doesn't have anything to do with this painting. So what I would want from this is for the city to keep giving us funding, and for us to resolve this.
Okay, so you're open to resolving this issue today? Okay, and just so I'm clear on what you've shared with us in the room, one of the big things that you feel, could be a resolution today is you want the city to fund the museum.
Yes.
Because you feel, and you have expressed to us that employees are not getting paid, and that you don't believe that's fair, and that they're taking forced vacation time, and that it impacts a lot of people's lives. Did I interpret that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for sharing that with us. Now, Jack, what would be your ideal solution to today's mediation?
Well, we want the picture taken down. I don't think we're opposed to restoring the funding after that. I mean, we're sorry to hear that your workers haven't been getting paid, but our workers at our office have also been unfairly treated because they've had to deal with all this backlash from the entire town. And I don't think that's fair that we've had to deal with all that work as well. So, I guess the solution we're looking for is getting the painting taken down, and then we can maybe go on from there.
Okay, so Jack, just so I have the information you've given me, I'm gonna relay it back to you to make sure that we understand that, what you've shared. You are first and foremost sorry that employees are not getting paid, and essentially your office as well has been feeling the ramifications of this conflict, and that you feel they've also been treated unfairly due to this situation. And a resolution for you today would be to have the picture down, and you and your office would not be opposed to restore funding based on your request of having the picture down. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I think we've made some, strides in acknowledging each other's, views and feelings, and, the fact that you're here tells me that you wanna, come to an agreement, and you both have said, you wanna work this out, you said you're sorry. So I feel like we're in a good position. So what I'd like to do now, and it really is up to you both, and you get to make a decision, is I would just kind of like to see if you both can see if you have any ideas on how you might want to compromise, and we can go from there. I mean, this is your process after all, and if anyone has any novel ideas, feel free to bring them to the table. So would anyone particularly like to start on solutions that they would like to see, aside from what each side wants in terms of coming to an agreement today?
Can you tell me more about, like, what you do and take down the painting?
So the painting is only supposed to hang up for 3 more weeks. And my concern, if we just take it down, when we're asked to do it, it's gonna impact how the museum is viewed and how, and our ability to choose the artwork ourselves. But I do appreciate community input, and I don't want to keep something in the museum that a lot of people find offensive. But also I don't feel like I should be forced to remove something once it's already hung up. So I think if I were to take it down early, I think we need to have some sort of agreement on to how we would solve this in the future if a similar case comes up, so that we don't get all this, the museum don't get all this bad publicity, and you don't get all this pressure from the community.
Jack, do you want to respond?
Well, I mean, as far as the solution goes, what did you have in mind? What are you thinking, like, maybe having the picture screened in front of groups of people before you put it up, or what did you know?
I don't know, I didn't have a specific procedure in mind.
Okay, did you have something you want to add?
I don't know if you did.
Oh, no, this is your process, this is your process.
Oh, I want to hear what you had to say.
Oh, I just want to kind of relay back what I've heard from this interaction, and if
Okay.
you want to add something to it, I'd be more than happy to hear it.
Go ahead.
Okay, just so I'm clear, and this goes to solutions. Tanya, you've expressed that the painting has 3 more weeks. You fear that if you're asked to take it down, it's gonna impact how the museum is viewed. And, while at the same time, you recognize the importance the importance of community involvement. You don't wanna ostracize the community in any way, shape, or form, so that's important to you. So essentially what you want from that is, you want input. So you wanna kind of come to some sort of agreement, in terms of how the community would receive certain pieces of art in the future. Did I relay that correctly?
Yes, just so that we don't come to this situation again where something's already hung on the wall.
So is it safe to say you want to avoid the situation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, thank you for sharing that. And Jack, my understanding of your response is you kind of brought to the table the possibility of maybe having the picture screened beforehand in some sort of way, shape, or form to kind of avoid the things that Tanya wants to avoid as well. Is that correct?
That's an idea, yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to how does anyone have anything to add how this may be accomplished, or what you see any other solutions that may lead to the result of the community seeing the piece before it's decided upon, or does anyone have any ideas how to implement the screening process?
I mean, you're the one who's in charge of putting the paintings up, so I think that would be something you would mainly handle, right?
Yes, just wanted us to agree on some sort of procedure.
Right.
I don't think it has to be a really big thing, but just so that it has been approved in some form so that we don't have to take it down once it's already up.
I mean, did you think this current painting wasn't going to get a reaction, or?
Not really.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to kind of focus on the progress we have made. So I want to thank you both once again. You know, you both want to come to an agreement. I see that you, Jack, if I'm clear, think that Tanya, as the museum director, is in charge and can kind of implement some sort of procedure. And while at the same token, Tanya, you think you want an agreement on that actual procedure because the city's the one that frowned upon the original painting. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, it's just so that they can't remove our funding
Okay.
because we hung something on the wall. Because the most important thing really is to reopen the museum, so that all my employees can go back to work
Okay.
and get paid.
Okay.
So are you asking for the city to like approve the paintings before you put them up?
I don't know just how we would do it, but I guess that would work.
So what I'm hearing, if I'm correct, is essentially there has to be a framework between both parties in having a painting greenlit for hanging, maybe? Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Sounds like it.
And how do you feel about that as the city?
I think if that's what they wanna do, then we can do that.
Okay. And Tanya, do you have any ideas how much of a scale you want this to be, like, in terms of implementation? Like, would it be a few city leaders, would it be a community event, or what are you kind of thinking as a museum director?
Well, since we do change our exhibits really often, so I don't think it would be beneficial if it was a huge thing where a lot of people were involved every time, but, I don't know. Just,
Well, so you mentioned like having like an event where you show off different kinds of paintings. Would you
Yeah.
think that you could base that approval of certain paintings during that limited festival thing? Like maybe it's a couple
Yes.
days and you just base it off that feedback whether or not you wanna hang it in your museum?
yeah, that's fine.
Cause the city people be looking,
Yeah,
presumably be going there, so.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine.
So I think what I've heard is an agreement of sorts, or a process towards an agreement, to where if I'm correct, Tanya, you'd want it to be kind of a small group, in terms of observation at first, and Jack, what you brought to the table in this discussion was maybe have a few paintings up for a couple of days or a few days, however you decide this, and based off that feedback, it would be implemented on whether or not it would get hung up for like an extended period of time. Is that my understanding?
Well, based on what Tonya said, I thought she has like limited time festival things, like not necessarily in the museum, but you show off different paintings. Is that what you meant?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I guess.
I mean, like if you sponsor those kinds of events and you show paintings, you wouldn't necessarily hang those paintings in the museum, right?
Yes, that's right.
So if you show them off, then you could decide which ones you'd want to hang in the museum if you got feedback on them.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so Tanya, you're looking for feedback in that sense, based on a festival or a preview of what the museum may be offering in the future, is that
Yes.
correct?
So that will be when we're deciding if we, like what we initially want to put in the museum.
Okay, undecided, okay.
So then if the people that see it, don't like it, we don't need to bring it in.
Okay. And if y'all were to come to some sort of agreement on this process, do any of you have any idea how soon it would be implemented, or the wording, or who would draft it, or did y'all wanna discuss that for a moment?
So, I mean, the city is basically paying for this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'd be handling the financial part of that.
Okay.
So I guess it would just depend on when you'd be comfortable implementing that new system.
Yeah, no, we can do that right away, yeah.
And did you have a clear, like maybe within a time frame, like a few weeks, a month, or if y'all came to an
It would
agreement?
be when the next thing happens, like the next time.
Exactly
you-
1 month from now.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
exactly.
To the minute.
okay, so if I'm clear on what you both just came to an agreement on essentially is, there would be kind of a small circle trial run of a new exhibit from select city leaders at the museum. And based off feedback from that, there might be paintings implemented, or they might not be implemented based on the feedback, obviously. And the language of this agreement is essentially would be drafted by the city attorney's office, is that correct, since you're financing the operation?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, and would that then be reviewed by the museum to be approved, or how would that work, or how do you foresee all that?
You probably wanna look at it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and, okay, and through this agreement would, obviously, I'm not a contract drafter, so I'm trying to understand maybe the city's perspective on this. Would everything kind of, that you both come to an agreement to today be drawn out in that agreement? And would there be any conditions that either of you wanna kind of implement in the situation, or?
Well, as a condition for us funding all this new stuff, I think we do need to have painting taken down.
Okay. And Tanya, how do you feel about that?
I think I can agree to take it down earlier than 3 weeks from now. But would you be willing to let it hang up for the next week, or do you want it?
As soon as possible.
Because it does add, since we're not receiving funding, the picture is bringing us in money. So
Okay, so, just so I'm clear on what's been spoken, the condition to the whole agreement that you kind of both talked about is bringing the painting down as soon as possible, Jack, correct?
Immediately.
And Tanya's stance on this, if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is you're willing to bring it down earlier than 3 weeks, but you're asking essentially for a 1 week, one more extended week of the painting because it's bringing
one week
funding?
would be great.
So, essentially, essentially, you both have those positions. So, I guess what I'd like to know is, just so I'm clear, Jack, on the city's funding aspect of it, would you begin funding immediately, or would you wait until the painting comes down, or how did the county attorney's office wanna, what's the stance on that situation?
We'd be willing to restore funding and do the festival stuff as long as the painting is taken down immediately.
Okay,
So, but, why I was wanting to have it for next week is because the employees haven't been paid, so that could bring us some income but because we've lost, I think $11,000, during the time the museum has been closed. So we would either like, funding for the time that we lost. Especially if we are taking it down right now.
okay, and just so I'm clear on what you just said, it sounds like you're telling Jack, as the city attorney in his capacity, that you'd be willing to take it down as soon as possible, and the reason why you want to extend it for a week is because you want to gain some funding you lost. But you'd be willing to take it down as soon as possible, pending the city provides, the lost compensation. Do you have any number in mind to that, or Jack, what's your response to that while you think of a number, or maybe?
I mean, we don't think funding the extra stuff's good enough for that.
Well,
I
it
assume your
won't-
staff would be employed during the extra festival stuff, right?
Yes, but they won't be paid for the weeks that they now haven't been.
But they'd be
Right.
paid back eventually for the extra work, wouldn't they?
Could you clarify that? I'm trying to just understand.
Well, I
the
mean,
aspect of it.
so we're funding the museum again, and we're also going to be hosting special events now for these screenings of the paintings. I would think that would mean that bring in extra work than they would normally have, correct?
I'm not familiar with the museum business, but, did you wanna follow up on that, Tanya?
I don't know, would that be in addition to, what they normally get paid? Or because the funding, would that only
I think it'd be more hours for them to work, right?
Well, yes, but then we would need more funding to pay them for the extra hours. Not
Right, 'cause
just
we're
to pay
paper.
for the practical part of
Right.
having the events.
I mean, it was my understanding we fund basically all of this, right?
Yes, that's to keep our museum running.
I guess I wanted to clarify, does the city normally just fund the museum? Is that how the museum's funded, like 100%?
To my understanding.
Yes, I think.
Okay. So, Jack, what I understand, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so when they stop funding, we don't get anything practically. So that's why the employees have been out of work.
So what I'm hearing is you're looking for some form of monetary relief for your employees in exchange for bringing down the payment as soon as possible.
Yes,
And Jack, what I'm understanding is you as the city already you're implementing that you all already pay for the museum, so you don't see a need to,
Well, we're paying for the museum, and then we're gonna be hosting these extra events for them as well.
okay,
And so presumably the same workers will be working there, and since we're funding that,
okay,
we're basically paying them more than we normally would.
okay. And Tanya, how do you feel about that?
I just don't know if we can, set the extra events as equal to the 11,000 that they just lost. Cause I don't know how many hours it will be and how it would, like in practice, how we would do it.
And Jack, do you have a response to that?
I mean, they'd be regular, right? You'd be doing this for all your new paintings, so it'd be consistently more.
Yes.
Do we know a number of how many times a month maybe, or just something I can kind of wrap my head around?
I think we keep the paintings up for at least 1 month. It depends on the agreement with the artists and. So it wouldn't, I don't think it would be more than once a month.
Okay, I mean, I understand that you're asking for about 11,000 as a rate, and we are paying more, so would you be willing to ask for like a lower amount than 11,000?
Yeah,
Okay. So, maybe like half of that?
yeah, that would be okay.
Okay, 5,500.
And just so I'm clear, and we're making lots of progress, I wanna thank y'all again. Essentially, Jack, you were under the impression that the revenue from the special events would make up for the 11 that was lost. Then Tanya informed you that it'd be once a month, and given that information, you then recognized and were made aware that you'd be willing to compensate for the lost wages, but not the 11,000, and.
Because we were already paying for that with the extra for that.
Exactly, and you then, offered to lower that sum amount into half, which is 5,500. And Tanya, from what I understand, you are completely okay with that.
Yeah, I think that in addition to the extra events will make up for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just so I'm clear and so everyone in the room's clear, how would you just distribute that amongst your employees equally, or how's the payment process between both parties gonna shape out
So
essentially?
there are 10 employees, so yeah, it would be divided between them because none of them have been working.
Okay.
So
I
we
don't
just
think-
didn't,
I don't think like the state needs to handle that, right? Like,
no,
it
it would
doesn't need
just
to be
be
in the contract, we can
the,
just give you the lump sum.
yeah, and it would be distributed the way they usually get paid.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
And that's essentially my follow-up on the state's portion, because I'm not familiar with legislative process or bureaucracy, essentially.
Me neither.
It's kind of convoluted, and I understand that. So is it my understanding that the city would pay the lump sum of $5,500, would this be all at once to the
Yeah.
museum? And then the museum director would therefore just break it down from there? Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
Okay, so. Now, let me see if I have the whole kind of, everything you both have come to agreement today, if I have the whole big picture correct. And if I do, then maybe, both parties can get started and kind of drawing up, well, actually, the city was gonna drop the agreement.
We can do like a preliminary mediation agreement.
Exactly, and both of y'all can kind of write the agreement down and kind of see how it looks from there. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Okay, yes, and thank you once again for coming today, and you both have agreed on a lot, and that is something to take for granted. So, just so I have the breakdown. The museum agrees to take down the painting as soon as possible, immediately,
Once she gets home.
when the parties are in the museum.
Yeah, so that would have to be tomorrow since the museum is closed right now, but yes, but no one will see it, so.
And I apologize for taking museum time and city time, but this is an important process, and thank y'all again, or thank you both again. I'm from Texas, so the y'alls, excuse that, please. So, essentially, the museum would bring down the painting immediately. And the condition of that is the city will resume funding and, provide a loss of wages settlement of $5,500 to be paid in a lump sum agreed upon on a date between both parties.
I'd also like to have the lump sum be confidential.
Okay,
Yeah, that's okay.
okay, confidential? Okay, so the lump sum, settlement agreement would be confidential, if I'm correct in hearing that, and you're okay with that, Tanya?
Yes.
And Jack brought it to the table, okay. So confidential, painting down, the lump sum from the city, a date to be determined by the two of you, and, then you would pay that to your 10 employees as back wages lost. And then with that with that settled, there is now a new, what I would call maybe a screening process that you both agree to where you have a small circle of people from the city's office, doing a monthly festival to kind of look at the art and see the community feeling.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be even official, it can just, I don't know how you would normally run that, but just like patrons of the museum or whatever.
Yeah.
Members of the community,
Yeah.
kind of doing a preview at this festival.
Yeah, and I would like that to be viewed as a positive new thing, so
Yeah.
that the museum don't get a bad reputation.
Right.
Yeah.
Just kind of like
Go and innovative.
yes, like a public preview, you know, essentially. So a public preview via the community, however that's determined between the parties, to kind of get a pulse on what the community's feeling about the art in question. And and that's gonna be funded completely through the city, and that program is going to be spelled out and structured via your office and sent to the museum curator to be approved and then signed upon agreements. Does that sound correct?
That sounds right.
So, did everything I say sounds like everything you came to an agreement to today?
Yeah,
Yes.
do you wanna read it off one more time?
Would you like me to?
Why not, just so we make sure we have everything.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, I can definitely do that. Okay, so, and keep in mind, I'm gonna have you both write the agreement kind of as usually how it goes, but if y'all don't feel comfortable with that, just let me know. But just to kind of summarize what you both have brought to the table today and both brought to mediation, and once again, thank you. Essentially, the condition is the painting comes down immediately, which will be tomorrow, starting business hours, on the condition that you will resume funding and that you will provide $5,500 in lost sum in wages to the museum curator's employees. And that date of payment will be determined by the parties, obviously, in your office.
Well, the funding will have to start as
Oh,
soon as we
yes.
open the museum again,
Oh, yes.
so that will be after we take the payment.
Okay. Yes, so the lump sum will be determined, but funding the museum shall cease or shall continue immediately, correct? Okay, and the painting, and a condition of that is the painting has to come down tomorrow, starting business hours. And
The lump sum payment has to be confidential.
the lump sum payment is
So you
gonna,
can't talk about it, employees can't talk about it.
yeah,
Yes.
so that has to be confidential, and that's an important piece. And then from the confidentiality in that agreement, stems off this program, what I would, however y'all wanna name it, but I call it maybe a community festival preview of art.
Yeah.
Where select members of the community, not too big of a number, if I'm correct, will preview essentially what's coming to the museum, and therefore the city and the museum is able to get a pulse on the vibe that these paintings allude to. So if it's negative, maybe they won't present it, or if it's positive, they will. And the language of that agreement will be drafted by the city to be submitted to the museum, and the museum will then read the terms, and if they agree, sign, and that is how art will essentially be screened without it being called screening, maybe, essentially?
Yes.
It'll be a fun festival.
Yes, yes, and, did I get all that correctly?
That sounds right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it was a little tricky, but I tried to do my best. Y'all know your professions way better than I would know museums or city attorney's offices, so. So I'm gonna allow did y'all wanna take a break before we get the agreement, or are y'all okay just starting on that now?
We have to.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and, have the parties, start writing the preliminary agreement, and we can go from there, and I'll be happy to put my signature on it, whenever you both are done. So, I wanna thank y'all again, and I'm telling you, coming together and coming to this agreement, will definitely, it's a great process that I've seen today, so thank y'all for that. Oh, I did have one quick question, I apologize. How did you both want to address the ongoing litigation? Is that gonna be something,
Well, if the painting's down, then we don't have to do the appeal, right?
Yes.
okay, so the museum will dismiss the appeal?
Yes, because that was basically about getting the funding back,
Okay.
and now that we agreed to it.
Okay, so thank y'all for your time, and go ahead and start drafting that, and thank you.
I think I finished drafting